Hey everybody, we got a cheap watch review coming, well, here, right now, and then we've got tomorrow, well, I probably won't get to it till Thursday, it arrives tomorrow, and it will be my first actual luxury watch. The brand is Longines, so I actually went and finally found a good deal on my first true luxury brand. I have nice watches, but I haven't had any that you would say, oh, that's a luxury brand. Longines is. So it's going to be one of their lower end models, but hey, it is still a Longines. So it's like having like the cheap Rolex. It's still a Rolex. So for today, we're going to focus on a cheaper watch. I like some Invictas. Here's the thing with Invicta. And here's why a lot of people are watch snobs don't like them. By the way, hit like and subscribe and make some comments. Make some noise. A lot of people do not like the Invicta watches because most of their watches are god-awful looking. They look like just big, chunky, gaudy. To me, in my head, I'm like, it looks like it should be, you know, in a hoopty, you know, with someone with a 470 credit score. It's just, to me, they just look like they're the ultimate poser bling, but not bling like you got a Royal Oak or even, you know, any kind of a name brand. Invicta's a cool brand. They've been around forever. They're older than Rolex. I think they started in like 1837. But the company's gone through a couple changes. They're a Swiss watchmaker. Most of their stuff is not made in Switzerland anymore. But they make some decent watches. And the ones that I like are the Pro Divers. Now, this one I don't wear much because I got it because I thought it looked good online. But then when I see it, the gold and the blue, it's a little too blingy. It's also a 40 mil. 40 millimeters just a little too small for me. It looks like a girl's watch on my wrist. So I have this, and I'm just going to give it to somebody whose wrist it fits. But I just don't, you know, as a 40 mil, it's just, I like 42. This is 43 and a half, 43, 42, 43. I like 42 to 44, 45. So I'm looking through some of the Invictas. Oh, and the other thing that gives them a bad rap is they do this shit. $395. And then they, you know, but marked down to $69. Just stop. Nobody is looking at this going, this is a $400 watch. And some of the other big, chunky, gaudy, awful, blingy ones, you know, they'll have like a $1,200 price tag marked down to $84. It's like nobody's buying that. So that's where it rubs people the wrong way because it screams poser. If you're just putting out a decent basic watch and you're charging, you know, not much money for it, people would respect it if it's a good watch and it provides, you know, value and it works well. And these tend to. So what I got is a 43 mil version. You can see it's a decent big, not hugely bigger, but side by side you can see it's bigger. I got it in all stainless with just the blue dial and blue face. And I was like, you know what? This is $69.29 on Amazon Prime with next day shipping. So I was like, you know what? Let me get that. Also, unlike this one, I didn't have to break 10 or 12 pins on my sizing tool pushing these out. These popped out nice and easy, just like any other watch that I have, any of my higher end, you know, nicer watches, Seikos, Orients, Belovas, Victorinox, stuff like that. So what do you get for 70 bucks? Can you get a decent watch for 70 bucks? Wearing my Bulova Lunar Pilot today with my red Mr. Wonderful style NATO strap. You've got your Cyclops. You've got your date. It's a nice looking watch. Obviously, this is an homage, if you will, to the Submariner. Here's another thing I like about this one. So this is 43 mil. I didn't get any of the gold on it, so it's less blingy. The strap and clasp are very similar, but, you know, nice and tasteful, just basic. These feel like solid links. There's some good weight to this, so they're not hollow links. The case back, you know, it's got their engraving and, you know, Invicta. But one of the other things people don't like is they always have Invicta, Invicta, and there's Invicta everywhere. Notice what you don't see on this $70 43 mil version. So you've got a nice stainless steel solid link, heavy substantial bracelet. It's easy to adjust with a standard little screw pin pusher. You've got 4 micro adjust. You don't have the adjust for, the wetsuit, whatever, but nobody uses that, so who cares? I was able to size it. It feels good on the wrist. It uses a Seiko movement, and this watch, it's a basic Seiko movement, but it's still a Japanese Seiko movement. It's a PC32A. It's basic, but it's 43 millimeters with, I believe, 22 mil lugs. Not a lot of movement. Everything's nice and tight in here. It fits well. It's a nice watch. There's nothing wrong with this watch. This is a watch that you can wear as a beater that looks nice. You can wear it around the office and do stuff with it and not have it look out of place. It doesn't look like it's trying too hard to be a Submariner. It's clearly, but you say, oh, well, it's an homage. It's copying Submariner. Seiko and Citizen and so many other companies, Rolex never patented the design on the Submariner. And it's been around for so long that at some point, most companies have made a watch that looks very similar to that. Some of the Seikos are almost as much of an homage copy as this thing is. But that's a nice watch. I think I'm going to move that. It's just a little loose. I'm going to add 1 click there on the micro adjust, but it's nice having those 4 micro adjusts. I can dial it in. On my wrists are on average about 7.3 inches in circumference. So I took 2 links off each side, and I'm on the furthermost out. I'm on the loosest setting of the micro adjusts, but it's just a tiny bit loose. So I'm going to move it 1 click in. So that's what I like about having those kind of bands, is you got that micro adjust, and it's very easy to do. But it's a nice enough watch. I mean, let's see. I don't know how the lume is. Let's see if I can do this without blinding myself from the reflection, because this Surefire tactical light is way bright, although it's not as light as my O-light. Yeah, it's got lume. It's not awesome, but I'm not a lume guy. Typically, if I'm in the dark, I just, I'll look at my phone. Or I'm going to bed, in which case I don't sleep with the watch on. I take the watch off. Fit and finish looks good. It's a nice polish on the sides. The fit and finish is good. Let's check the bezel. Nice positive clicks. Now I will say, put it on the wrist so it kind of holds it steady. It doesn't have a lot of grip. So your hand wants to slide if you don't grip it just right. But the clicks are nice and positive. It lines up properly. Everything's lined up nice, so that's good. It's a screw-down crown, screw-down back with 200-meter water resistance. Changed the battery every couple years. I think it weighs 155 grams, although maybe a tiny bit less because I've got 4 links removed total, 2 on each side. That's a nice looking watch. It's not going to be like, oh, that's my favorite watch. But when you want a beater watch where, hey, you're traveling or you want to have something that looks kind of decent for the office, but maybe you're going somewhere and you don't want to wear your $400, $600, $800 ones or, stuff like that. So you're just like, well, if I lose it or break it, I'm going to the beach. Hey, I got a dive watch. I got something that I can go swim in the ocean with. But if I scratch it up on the sand or damage it or something like that, I'm not worried about losing one of my nicer ones. There's nothing wrong with this watch. It's got the safety clasp, so snaps in nice, boom, locks in place. Other than me needing to tighten it 1 click, it's a good looking watch. I like it in blue, you get it in black. They have a couple different colors. This one, the model specifically, I'll put a link in there. It's 22019, but then it has comma 25715. There's a whole bunch of Pro Divers. There's 39 and 40 mils. There's this 43 mil. There's some bigger ones that are really thick. There's a ton of Pro Diver. Pro Diver is kind of like not less about the model. It's more about like what family it's in, what collection it's in. If you want the smaller ones, there's Quartz. They have these in automatics as well. I'm not as much of a fan of automatic. They tend to need more maintenance. And if you don't wear your watches every day because you got so many, you're shuffling them around, the time's always off because the power reserve runs out. And then you got to set the date and time and wind it up every time. So I tend to prefer Quartz, even though I have 3 automatics. I've got a couple Orients and one of my Seikos. There might be another one. The Longines I'm getting is quartz. That's why it's under $1,000 and not $1,800. But this is a beautiful watch. It's a really nice watch. It's not over-branded. It's not over the top and gaudy with just, you know, yeah, you don't look at the side that much, but I've never liked that. And honestly, I don't like the gold. Other people do. That's fine. It's not my style. If I'm going to have a bracelet, I like having stainless. I don't mind it having a little bit of contrast, like having some links that are brushed and some that are polished. That's fine. But size-wise, you know, if you looked at this and you didn't know anything about Invicta and you had this thing sitting here with these, you'd think this looks, you go, well, it doesn't have a day of the week like that does. And it's not a chronograph with extra buttons and things like that. But you'd look at this and you would think that this watch belongs in this group, even though $400, $425, almost $500. You know, this is a quarter of the price. Oh, shit, less than that. This is like a fifth or a sixth of the price of any of these watches right here. But just at a casual glance, you'd say, well, it's a little smaller. There's less going on. It's less busy. But you wouldn't necessarily look at it and go, wow, this feels or looks somehow vastly inferior. It doesn't look like it's a sixth of the price. It's just a nice watch. You know, I can say these are nicer, but, you know, they're also a lot more money. This is solar. It also weighs a lot more. Love the Victorinox, very clean, very elegant, really nice and legible. And that was the problem I had here. The dial is so small. When this is a 40 and you got a thick bezel, the piece in here is actually very tiny. Then you got the Cyclops. To me, it always felt cramped. Scaling up to a 43 mil, to me, this made this almost perfect. I wouldn't mind it to be just a little bit bigger. I think this is probably 42.9 and these might be 43 and change. But I wouldn't mind it being a little bigger. But it's just big enough that I could slap that on, and it's proportional to my wrist. And people that are smaller than me, they might think it's a little on the big side. 42 to 44, that's where I want to be. Occasionally, I'll find a watch I really like that's like a 41, 42, and I'll put up with a smaller dial. But Invicta's not a bad watch company. They've been around forever. Yes, most of their models are god-awful, and they're hideous, and they just look atrocious, gaudy, blingy shit. But if you go into their Pro Diver series, they have automatics with like Seiko NH34A, which is, you know, or NH34, or maybe it's an NH35A. Maybe that's one of them's a GMT. I don't beat me up because I don't know all the movements memorized off the top of my head. But, you know, they've got Seiko movements, screw down crowns, screw down backs. You know, for a watch that's under $100 that is built pretty well and has solid links and those specs with Seiko guts, it's a good enough watch. You're not going to impress a watch snob who's sitting there with a Cartier or even Seikos or anything like that. But if you just want a nice looking watch and you don't have $10,000 to spend on a Submariner used, why not consider one of these? But if you get them, my advice is go for the 43 mil. I think that they're just a better size for most people, and you can get them in an automatic, or you can get them in a quartz. If you're only gonna have one or two watches, you can be wearing it like all the time. Go for the automatic, honestly. And that's a watch that you, even though it's an Invicta and your local jeweler might not sell Invicta, but you will be able to get the watch service because it'll have a standard Seiko movement that everybody knows how to work on, because Seiko provides movements for their watches and tons of others. So a lot of other watches out there are using Seiko movements. They just buy their movements, they create their own dials, their own cases and bracelets and things, and they drop the guts in there, and all that's doing is powering their watch. So you can get it serviced at most places. Nothing wrong with it. Invicta's not a bad watch company. They're not a high-end watch company. They're certainly not prestigious, but it's a nice watch. It's a perfectly fine watch. Just stay away from the blingy shit. So there you have it. Stay tuned, though. The one I've been just sitting there thinking about forever, and oh, should I do it? And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go ahead and get a Longines. So that should be here tomorrow, and that's going to be a 43 mil Conquest in blue, and I cannot wait to get my hands on that bad boy. So that'll be my first luxury watch. After that, I'm thinking about an Aqua Racer or an Aqua Terra. There's a couple Togs and Omegas that I've been keeping my eyes on, and a Breitling, and there's a Luminox that looks pretty cool. I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is sell off a lot of my collection and just get it down to 8 to 12 really of my nicer watches. That'll be my Longines, my Bulovas, my Seikos, my Victorinox, my Citizens. I think I'm going to maybe just consolidate into the nicer watches and let the cheaper ones go. So we'll see. But anyway, hope you enjoyed. Invicta Pro Diver 43 mil. Look in the description for this particular model. I like this. I like this way better than this. This is coming out of the box, and I'm just going to give that away to somebody. Whoever's wrist it fits will enjoy their new watch, and we're going to go with this guy. So we'll talk to you guys later.